We're going to get started. If you want to find a seat, get comfortable. Hi, everyone. Waiting for our readers to sit down. It is such a pleasure to be with you all this evening. My name is Laura Henriksen. I'm the program director here at the Poetry Project, and I'm really I'm very honored and delighted that we get to be gathered this evening for readings by DeCapite and Gail Scott. I have just a few quick announcements and reminders before we get into it. So there's 2 all-gender restrooms located upstairs and 2 more here on the first floor through the sanctuary. There's a rehearsal happening in the sanctuary right now, so if you need access to that first floor restroom, just find me or anyone on staff and we can get you over there. It's such a pleasure to be with you this evening. We'd love to see you at the project again very soon. So this Sunday, we'll be back for I Am Angry at a Force I Cannot See. That'll be in the sanctuary and a really, really remarkable occasion. I hope to see you at that. Next week, we'll be celebrating the publication of Asoto Saints' collected works out from Nightboat on Wednesday, and then we'll have an alt text as poetry discourse meeting on Thursday. So a lot of really exciting stuff coming up in the next few weeks. I think those are all of my announcements for now. So we're very lucky to have 2 guest introducers tonight. But before I bring up our first guest introducer, I wanted to read Mike's bio. So Mike DeCapite was born in Cleveland, moved to New York in 1987. His first reading was at St. Mark's Church in 1988. Hell yeah. And then his first appearance in print was in Cuz magazine, put out by the Poetry Project that year. His published work includes the novel Through the Windshield and the chapbooks Sitting Pretty and Creamsicle Blue, and the short prose collection Radiant Fog. His novel Jacket Weather was published by Soft Skull in 2021, and lucky for you, we have copies of many of those books available for sale. And now I'm really, really honored to turn it over to the wonderful Vincent Katz to introduce Mike DeCapite.
Hello. Mike DeCapite's a curator of our experience. Before we even knew we had experience, he knew, and he organized it all for us. For all of us? Yeah, that's the point. For example, it's getting colder suddenly, like we thought it wasn't going to get cold anymore, but it does. Even if it's not the cold we remember, still it's cold, and somehow Mike has recognized that for us. He's cataloged it, thought about it. Hell, he's probably read about it. Mike knows more books and movies and music than almost anyone I know. And here it comes in some gentle, offhand way. Funny, but not ha-ha funny, more like funny that makes you smile funny. Like when you're walking down the street and you suddenly smile and people start to look at you. What are you so happy about? It feels sinful to be happy sometimes, and in a way it is. I was talking about the weather and forgot for a minute, Mike's book is actually called Jacket Weather. That's what I mean. I took some notes when I first was reading Jacket Weather. They're dated November 8th, 2021, which was a Monday, by the way. I look up these notes, and they don't mean the same things they meant when I noted them down. I note other things, like this passage from page 220. I sat in this room as it got dark. I didn't pick up a book or a magazine, didn't get dinner started. Just sat on the couch, looking out the window. The sun had got below the cloud ceiling and chosen the Empire State and Chrysler buildings and a band of apartment buildings, which stood in a dark blue sky, transmitting now a burning auspicious gold, now vermilion. There's something about nature in Jacket Weather. The beautiful details Mike observes turn out to be not transitional, but central. Near the end of the book, there's a passage I remember from an earlier incarnation, a journal publication of just this page. Mike seems to know how all these bits, the bits of our lives that seem simultaneously random and momentous, fit together. The truth is, he is able to fit them together. That is the gift of the novelist that seemingly no one else has. Here's an excerpt from the passage. Last night, I walked her to the subway in a blizzard, which was also the year's first snowfall. It snowed upward. It spiraled down the side streets, hit you broadside at the intersections. Someone was laughing, but you couldn't look up. Then she was laughing, standing in a drift. And in that laughter, I heard all of life, why we live, even though we suffer, and even though we die, why it's still worth it. It's a book I like reading because it's so well put together, like an inlaid cabinet, only hipper. I'll read a casual phrase and something will alert me. I'll go back a page and a half, and sure enough, Mike prepared us for that, always with a light touch. And I ain't even mentioned the guys yet, or the rock and roll. Here he is, Mike DeCapite.
Vincent's the coolest, isn't he? Thank you, Vincent. That was an honor. I want to also thank Kyle and Laura for having me here, and for everybody at the Poetry Project that puts this together and makes this happen. And Gail for agreeing to read with me, and all of you for coming here. The traffic lights went vivid red, then green. The sky had emptied itself of day, but night hadn't come. A plane and its trail were enkindled up there. The plane, a scintilla, was so bright and distinct. It took me a moment to decide it wasn't small and close up, but large and far away. It made its way in living silence across the sky, an open secret. I was thinking that the only moments that mean a thing to me, like this, or like backing out of a space in a hospital parking lot with the sky in the banged-up flank of a white van, were too quick and evanescent to capture in writing or in any medium, even thought, so why bother? And then I was thinking, and yet, top of the subway stairs, I see Tony. He's piling garbage at the curb and putting new bags in the cans. Then we're standing outside his door. It's late on a spring afternoon, and we're standing there with our hands in our pockets, taking it all in, the people going by, and Kellogg's Diner, and the traffic, and the trees in McCree Park, which are new again, and the sky above the BQE. This light, I'm looking for the words. This is the color of and yet. The color of everything outside what you've decided, outside of what you know. It's like creamsicle blue. It's not even a color. It's not so much a color as it's less a color than a bias. Sunlight, like the sound of mandolins. We take the Palisades, and there's New York across the river, like it was there all along. And pretty soon we're crossing the George Washington Bridge through all that vertical air, all that glory, the glory of in between, the rapture of right now, and the gull-vaulted sky. We come off the bridge, and Gene Clark is playing, and the green treetops are tossing, a canopy of them, down to the Hudson. The car windows are open, and the day is breathing through us. It's a kind of benediction. There are those moments when you've come off the upper level and you're circling above the treetops with the river spread below, and you have a moment to reflect on it all before dropping into the chaos and immediacy of experience. How many times had I burst in from elsewhere, circled past the apartment windows of Washington Heights, and gone barreling down the Hudson, the river rising beside me. I feel that dream of New York again from before I lived here. Guy changing the oil of a truck on 11th Avenue. Now I don't live anywhere except my own ribs and skull. When I walked in on Thursday, Lou was sitting at his locker, still red from the steam. He had 3 cans of coffee for me in exchange for the magazines I've been taking him from work. Every week I took him 5 copies of People and Entertainment Weekly, and he gave them to women on his rounds. I didn't want anything for them, but he was Italian, so he enjoyed transactions. He was at the age when a person starts putting things aside for people and carrying them around in bags, pieces of interest clipped from newspapers, and coupons and canned tomatoes. Come to think of it, so was I with these magazines. This is how it starts. I thanked him for the coffee and went to my locker. "Where'd you eat this weekend?" he said from his row. "Where'd you go?" "Nowhere, I cooked." "What'd you make, pasta fazool?" "No, I made linguine with clams." "The red?" "No, the white." "What'd you do?" he said. I made my way to the end of the row. I said, "I softened a shallot in oil. I put red pepper flakes." "Parsley?" he said. "Yeah, parsley, oregano, and then half a cup of white wine and the juice from the clams." "You used the canned? What'd you buy, Snow's?" "Cento." "Oh, you bought the clam sauce?" "No, chopped clams." "I didn't know they made that. I have to look for that." "Yeah, so I put those in about a minute before I drained the pasta and squeezed some lemon juice." Lou frowned, approving. He was applying his facial cream. We were naked this whole time. I went back to my locker, got into my gear. I said, what about you? Where'd you go? I cooked. What'd you make? Linguine with clams. The white? No, I made the red this time with the whole baby clams in the can. What kind? Doxies, he said. What kind of linguine did you buy? Barilla, I said. You? DeCapite. That's good pasta. DeCapite's great, but it's $2.50 a box. They got it Western beef, $1 a box. There's that moment after you open your eyes, just a few seconds before you put the world back together, before you're anyone in particular. You're looking at a slice of light between the window frame and the shade. Then you take up your identity with its memories and preconceptions, and it's the same day as yesterday. But now I remember June. I wake up in my old life, and then I remember I'm in a new life, and lie there listening to the birds and the BQE. Morning docked at the window like an ocean liner. I'm walking up Havemeyer when I think I'd really like a popsicle. Of all things, right? All of a sudden I want a popsicle. I haven't thought about a popsicle in 40 years. Out of nowhere, it's like you're at the mercy of any stray thought. Nixon was president the last time I had a popsicle. But it's a hot day, I quit smoking, whatever it was, I want a popsicle. So I go to a bodega, but they don't have regular popsicles. All they've got is crazy multicolored confections, part French tickler, part fireworks, or those long frozen plastic things that burn the back of your throat. I just want a regulation, old-fashioned twin pop like when I was a kid. So I go to the supermarket, but you have to buy a box. The smallest box is 12. So I buy a box of 12. And that night I'm lying around watching The Sopranos or something. I eat 6 of them. I quit smoking maybe 3 months before, and you need something to do while you're watching these shows. When I smoked, I could watch 5, 6 episodes back to back because you're smoking, you're sort of involved with the action. Cigarettes make you part of the action. You're not just lying there. I can't just lie there and watch these assholes for 5 hours with nothing to do. I need something. Anyway, I ate half the box, 6 popsicles. And the next night, because it's there, again with the TV, I finished the box. And now, because I did it 2 nights in a row, it's like a little routine. I make a habit out of everything. So night 3, on my way home from work, I stop and buy another box of 12 popsicles. I don't know what my relationship status was at this point, that I was free to lie around watching The Sopranos every night, eating popsicles. Maybe I was with June and we weren't seeing each other at night until her divorce came through. I must have been with June because I was only able to quit smoking as part of my Stay Alive program with her, good faith gesture. The popsicles I wouldn't tell her about. It's too idiotic. Every night back and forth to the kitchen. Now I'll have a red one. Now I'll have a purple one. Sometimes taking 2 at a time so one of them can start to melt while I'm eating the other one because it's better when they soften up a little. So this goes on for maybe a week. Every 3 nights I go to the supermarket and buy a dozen popsicles until I go there one night and there are no more boxes of 12. I cleaned them out. There's only a box of 24. So I have no choice. I buy the box of 24. I cross the line into the unknown, figuring, this is crazy, but it'll last me 4 days. And that night, I ate the entire box. 24 popsicles, back and forth to the freezer, now cherry, now grape, now orange, lying on my back, peering over my belly like a seal with the remote in one hand and a popsicle in the other and the window fan blowing, take a disc out, turn it over, start another one, and the sticks and wrappers piling up on the table beside the clock with its minute hand going around and around on this orgy of popsicles. You look at a clock during something like this and you realize you're on your own. There's no one watching. No one in charge. Nothing prevents you from degenerating to madness and savagery except some voice at the back of your mind. Probably, by the end, I was just trying to get it over with, get finished with The Sopranos and finish off this box so I could close the book on this whole sorry chapter of my life and get on with things. Nevertheless, I did eat 24 twin pops in one night. I woke up the next morning with a purple tongue and a rash on both arms. And now I know I can never have another drink. I can never just buy a bag of dope someday for the hell of it, or an 8-ball because I got people in town. Whatever it is, I can't do it. I can never smoke even one cigarette without mutating into some kind of fiend. I have to just forget all that and get on with it. Just get on with what's left of my life. Just keep my head down and set off across the ice. A little wiser, a little older, a little more embarrassed. Because now this is another thing you're capable of, another absurdity. You like yourself a little less. It's like you wash a pet and you see what kind of scrawny, abject little creature has been living under there all this time. It's hard to feel the same about it after. But what are you going to do, get rid of the pet? You're stuck with the pet like you're stuck with yourself, so on you go. Saturday afternoon, reading on the bed, my attention wanders from the page to the window outside ours, the water tower skylines superimposed in rising ranks, dozens of water towers, and all the intricacies of a cityscape lit by the sun, facades, arched windows, cornices, cranes, scaffolding, row on row of these in the placid light, every detail registered on the glass plate. A world without mass, without time, without sound, dreaming itself all day in the glass, with a frame around it. Lou calls to say he picked up the magazines, a big stack this week, the usuals plus Real Simple with fall checklist and decluttering ideas. He says, I left you a package at the desk. I left you some prosciutto. You didn't have to do that, Lou. It's the Chitterio. You know that one? Sure, it's good. I left 2 packs of it. Why 2? You won't eat it? It's the 3-ounce pack. You make 1 sandwich. Thank you, Lou. Nice and pink, because the dark red is too dry. I'll use it tonight. The pink is soft. Maybe I'll cut it up in salad. You have to leave it out. I take it out of the fridge and let it get to room temperature, so it's got the full, I wait till the fat softens up. Yeah, till it gets a little translucent. Right. Usually I have it with mozzarella, but I didn't have any mozzarella. So I left you a small roll of brie. Lou, it's great, but it's too much. Thank you. I'll pick it up now. I'll be there in a minute. Oh, you're not home? I'm walking from Chelsea Market. I went to buy squid. You already bought the squid? Yeah, I'm going to fry it with parsley and garlic. How much? $10 a pound. $10 a pound? You kidding? For the local, from Rhode Island. From Spain, it's 16. My mother used to make it all the time. It was pennies. This was a peasant dish. It wasn't a fancy. Well, this is cleaned and tenderized or whatever, and everything's fancy now. You know that. I used to go to the Fulton Fish Market. They had it 15 cents a pound. When? In 1948? 1977. Summer of the Son of Sam. Lou Salica had a stand there. He was a bantamweight champ, world champ. Ever heard of him? No, Lou Salica, S-A-L-I-C-A. Look him up. He weighed 118. He was only about 5'5", weighed 118. Not then. By then he probably weighed 135, had a little pot belly. Couldn't meet a nicer guy. He used to sell the Gallimat 10 cents a pound, sometimes 2 pounds for 15 if he was closing up. The sky is gray, and God is on the breeze. We just smoked some hash. Station to station came on. Gradually, it came on. The steam, the platform. We became very involved with the train sound at the beginning. It went on forever. From Berlin to Cologne, it went on. And then the guitar, wailing. How great is that? I said. Wow. See? See what? Have you ever heard this? It's David Bowie, Thin White Duke. That cracked me up because I knew it wasn't her thing. But she could pull this silly phrase from 40 years deep storage, even though she didn't care about Bowie. There was something about our parallel history. I said, what's not to like about this? I never understood David Bowie. It's like science fiction. I keeled over to one side, laughing. What's not to understand about this? Listen to the sound of that. That's all you got to know. But now Bowie came on, intoning, doing his Nazi vampire cokehead bit. I want to know what's going on, Michael. I want to know what's happening. She meant, what does he want? You know, what's he want from me? She's immune to pretension. She wants music that's unequivocal, music that's on the make. I fell through a wormhole of adoration and laughter. A television song came on. I said, the thing about this band is, no matter how many times you hear these records, the opening notes of any song are momentous. There's an expectancy, like right before the drugs come on, that nervous excitement. A song starts and the universe is looking back at you. Something might be revealed. You're at the edge of an epiphany, you know what I mean? You're very chatty tonight, she said. I realized something. There was nowhere else I wanted to be, including alone. With June, I was right where I wanted to be. It registered like the sound of a gong. I never suspected this was a possibility. Always in the past, whoever I was with, I secretly wished I were elsewhere. Even if it was off by myself, typing and drinking or whatever. I just thought that's how it is. Who knew it could be this way? The traffic came sparkling into the beveled mirrors as I waited for my slice. Sometimes I put down the book, whatever the season, and I lay back, gazing at the cityscape and the clouds reflected in our neighbor's window, and feel a brimming sufficiency, the view reflected. Maybe because it's a glimpse of somewhere else, another dimension, like a diorama or the world inside a sugar egg. Or maybe it makes the present look like the past, because what's the past but the present minus movement? The reflection opens a moment to the eternity it conceals. There's a light buzz to it. If I could push a button right now, I could die content. Probably not without writing about it first. Rainy night, lentils on the stove. Lying awake in the dark, a nerve in the night, feeling that she and I are mortal and vulnerable, and there's not much standing between us and old age. A siren goes by in that bath of night that isn't really dark, where the room and what's in it are a pointillation of gray and orange and lilac, and even the black windows in the wall outside are seen as if through snow. That familiar non-color of night in every city all your life, a darkness that doesn't hide you. There's no safety in the dark. There isn't even much darkness in it. We were lying in bed. I was saying, I feel like my identity, my memory, because I guess those are the same, right? Your memory and identity occupy the same space, right? And I feel like that space is shrinking. I'm like a polar bear on a melting. She reached over and pressed my front teeth with her finger. I was silenced. Go on, she said. What are you doing? I said. I wanted to see if they were loose. They're not. I never noticed before that one of them sticks out a little. Go on, tell me. I don't remember what I was saying now. I feel like you just hit the reset button. You feel like you're on an ice floe? Oh, yeah. I feel like I used to have a firm ground of identity to stand on, comprising all the things I know, all my reading and experience, and my assumptions and opinions and convictions. So I was supported by a pretty big platform, which is now shrinking away, getting smaller all the time, as I'm forgetting all that. But I don't really mind, because I don't need to remember who I am. Subway car pulls glittering with tunnel lights. There are moments we're reminded that just the sight of something is a thrill. I don't know how it is for you, but for me it's often an unexpected reflection. At some point, I discovered I could lift my spirits by paying attention to what was reflected in surfaces rather than to the surfaces. I'd walk around looking not at windows and cars, but at what was reflected in them. When you do this, you see that every surface is reflecting, not just shiny surfaces, not just steel and glass and puddles, but sidewalks and tree trunks, not just the greasy subway tiles and the puddle between the tracks and the side of the train pulling in, but the cement platform and the dead soot brown of the track bed. every surface reflecting, always to the best of its ability. Waiting behind a dirty windshield on Kenmare Street, there's red light caught in the grain of the road and in the steam rising from an exhaust pipe. Just waiting in this heat of consciousness I call my life. Right now is where it hurts to miss you, the parts I know I won't remember. This is where real life is, down in the folds of time's fan. Then the steam turns green. Back home, I put on my reading glasses, and I can see the weave of my jeans and the sunlit dust particles on the midnight blue cover of my writing tablet, and there's a flooding, swimming sensation at the world as it is and my ability to apprehend it. Bars of sunlight on the couch. They brighten and fade with the breeze. They come back and fade. Everybody's coming out after the rain, banging pots and pans, blowing plastic horns. The sky's in the puddles, and people come out from the bodega awnings and doorways, out of the alleys, and with singing, with cymbals and timbrels and psalteries and harps, with trumpets, and up from the sewers and out of the parks, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks, and with conchs and kettle drums, tabors and cow horns, snatching laundry off the lines, flying it like flags. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, my baby. Thank you.
Oh, Mike, that was so beautiful. Wow, let's have another round of applause. That was great. Thank you. And Vincent, also, that intro was just so perfect. Thank you both so much. I'm really delighted now that we'll get to hear from Gail Scott. And before I turn it over to Gail's introducer, I'll just read this bio real quick. Gail Scott's newest work, a memoir about downtown New York poets around the Poetry Project in the early Obama years, is just out from Wave, and we have copies over there. Her 2021 Poetics, Permanent Upside Down Revolution, engaging with radical prose across the continent, was shortlisted for Le Grand Prix du Livre de Montreal. City novels include The Obituary, a fractal tale of suppressed diversity in post-millennial Quebec, Heroine, about radical art and politics in turbulent 1980s Montreal, and My Paris, about a sad diarist looking for a lost avant-garde in 90s Paris. She lives in Montreal. I'm really, really delighted now to turn it over to Rachel Levitsky to introduce Gail Scott.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks, Mike, for that great reading. Thank you, Project, for everything. And Gail, if any of you have ever written about Gail, well, I've written a lot about Gail, and I will say that it gets easier, but it doesn't get shorter. It continues to take a long time. So I wrote this and just finished it right before I came. So it might be a little awkward. And that's why I brought the dog, because he didn't have a walk, so be quiet. So as many of you know, Gail Scott is a magnificent maestro of formal literary courage, i.e., the rendering of solid new forms by which she navigates a thorough historical political landscape along a shifty, centered subjectivity in the realm of what I like to call, which you will learn when you read furniture music, prose, by which perhaps I mean prose that teaches us what prose is and what it does, can do, and yes, something that is also queer in that it is multiple and multi-gendered. Gail's acumen at the level of the sentence, at the level of the volume, and at the level of the oeuvre is so complete or vast that it always feels a little perverse for me to approach her work for its filth, its delicious dirtiness. Stalks sagging more, McCain, Gail and Tizzy of Nostalgia, you seriously craving, I can go on. But coming from last night's brilliant Kay Gabriel reading for my forum class at Pratt, where her introducer, Dan DeMars, who's here, noted Gabriel's wager of explicit queer filth as not only an avenue of transcendence, but also a frame for literary architecture that wedges itself in the gaps of identity to open and amplify all of our desire lives, which we write out of our work at ours and the work's capitulation to what? Nothing that will come to any good. To wit, one of my favorite of Gail's quotations of the New York poets that she writes about, A.W., Anne Waldman, referring to a less late capital time in which Anne says, so-called subject matter was sexually explicit, tender. K, I should note, is a lens queer of Gail's from, as Gail calls it, Chez Nous while in Paris in her novel My Paris and the North in Furniture Music, her period piece / memoir, which I abashedly can't help but feel is also a novel. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. And speaking of Gail's My Paris, a book upon which I structured an entire class called Urban Moderns, in which, having read Benjamin's Arcades, Barnes's Nightwood, Baldwin's Another Country, watched Vigo's Adelante, read John Keane's Annotation, and Breton's Nadja, etc., the students would read Gail's My Paris and have aha after aha after aha. Who says citation can't be fun? I was always so struck by how the slightly paranoid writer-narrator in that book, on her divan, merges and opens to the pain of others. In particular, the pain of others who are structurally oppressed and pursued by repressive power. The undocumented immigrant jumping into the river makes vast and tender the consciousness of the narrator. This consciousness also drives Furniture Music, a book which is the most desired bookend for now a year-long Paris-New York class. The book is absolutely United Statesian in its perfectly pitched echo of Ralph Ellison's 1970 announcement that there is no U.S. America and nothing United Statesian that doesn't originate from black people and black everything. So, Scott asks, what does it mean to be a poet citizen in this country when something erupts? Barack Obama is elected and stays elected for 8 years. Avi, there's much it doesn't mean. The Dems are still the Dems. This period is also the crucible of time of the 2007-2008 predatory lending-inspired stock crash, spelled Krasch, Occupy and Occupy Wall Street, Israel's 2008 bombing of Gaza, and the death of Akilah Oliver, narratives that in my overstimulated body are hard to hold in memory, but which I find habitable in this poetry dollhouse that Gail has given us to see how we are and how we were. Sorry, short. In My Paris, Scott introduced her hopefully now universally known and recognized use of the present participle, driving the action without being laded by the unnecessary auxiliary. I am sitting becomes I sitting. In her formal rigor and invention, Gail continues to use this economy and adds to it shortened spellings and poetic misspellings, to wit crash, pluses instead of ands, and other economies. Used in the obituary, in the obituary, these uses make the book even more speedy and sexy. I'm sure here in Furniture Music there are a host of new formal inventions, the title of which comes from Eric Satie and is itself a character interlocutor throughout the book. Yes, the ambience, it is the so-called United Statesian high-low combo, has a voice, not to mention the citations of conversants in the margin. But the name I'm giving for the big formal move that I and we are all going to be excited about for the next decade and beyond is Gail's birthing of the obsessive contiguous. See page 137. In the obsessive contiguous narrative, there are no footnotes, no parentheticals. It's a world that refracts and divides and stays and makes a bed for you to lie in, to dream in, to fuck in. I had a question, a wonder of what it means for this community to have this timestamp by this person at this time. I recall being in Mexico during the Zapatista rebellion and Mexican activists looking to me for an impression, noting that Chicanos were to them better storytellers of Mexicanismo than they were of themselves. This love object, rendered by Gail with the exactitude of her famous atelier, the divan, may answer that question, and I'd love to talk to you all about it forever. Please welcome Gail Scott.
So great to be here. I haven't been in New York. Whoops. Is that okay? I haven't been in New York since before the pandemic. And coming into the city, it's too bad it's so expensive to come here, and the Canadian dollar is so low right now. I'd be here way more often. Rachel, I'm blown away by your introduction. Thank you so much. I loved your reading, Mike. It's completely, really, we're at the different edges of the spectrum, but it's great that they're together in a way. And thank you, the Poetry Project. I love you, and I hope you'll love me because I've dragged a lot of your history through this book. Okay. So, as Rachel said, furniture music is named after Eric Satie's musique d'ameublement, or background music. And the idea I had and still have is that when you're talking about another country, you're actually always talking about your own. And so the voice in the memoir, which is kind of a novel in a way, is kind of like Satie's background music. I think he was the father of elevator music, actually. When they used to have music in elevators, I've noticed they don't anymore. It's kind of a tease. It's kind of it's a babble. It's a tease. It's irksome sometimes, it's ticklish sometimes, and I've kind of let the narrator, who's sometimes I call it the Northern, sometimes I call her Gail when I disapprove of her slightly or even a lot, and I let her stay with all her warts and shortcomings, but for my work, it's actually pretty anecdotal piece of work, but under the anecdotal aspect of it, I think there's a lot of working out about the question of what it means to be a citizen and how that's different from being a subject, because we still have queens on our the queen on our dollars, or not, I guess it's going to be Charles, and not Camilla anyway. that wasn't very nice. And you know, as people of a next dominion, we have still something of the subject left. It's hard to make a judgment about that, but there is citizen to the south, and there is this sort of demi-citizen subject to the north. And I'm very interested in what that produces in terms of language and poetry. So that's one aspect. The other aspect of furniture music is the question that goes all the way through of what poetry can really do in these times when we need intervention so badly, and how the work of unpacking language that poetry does, and which is so necessary. How that filters through into having a social impact. So that's the other question I ask. This I'm going to read from two different sections from 2011 and 2012. So the book covers the first 4 years of the Obama regime, and it starts out with the tremendous euphoria of that regime, and then it's around the time that I'm writing here, there start to be questions, and then there's a coda at the end, which is set in 2016 when Trump won that election. And I just happened to be here I didn't realize it was election day that when I landed, and then everything unwound that happened afterwards. So, le bonheur, happiness. Vote early. Leave for Manhattan. May 1, eve of Canadian federal elections, just as announcement Obama getting Osama bin Laden, leading up Canadian TV evening news, elbowing to second spot, historic Canadian vote, thought to be ushering in unprecedented social democratic regime, fellow citizens having got in chips and beer for tomorrow's electoral joust, kind of like watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, n'est-ce pas? Treated primarily on their little screens to crowd of joyous USians gathering in Times Square for carnivalesque revenge celebrations. Only the worst tourists go to Times Square, snapping E. Their pickup truck parked near Chelsea Cafe. We're sitting with CR, in from San Francisco to launch superb Pro-Am collection, Sherwood Forest. I want to write Eileen, writes CR, but I'm feeling guilty. I'm too high. I fold my muscles into wads and sleep soundlessly. I can't remember my dreams. They crumble, a soft cake, a picnic with Carla. She brings rosemary bread and astonishing pistachios. She reads to me about utopias, so touched and happy, I float right up into the sky. At the time of this section, Gail is staying in a house. They're in an apartment on 9th Street that she calls Jay's Museum. And it turned out to be I don't know why, but a dream space for me, partly because of the way the interior was organized. For some reason, I'm a person who doesn't sleep. I slept practically the whole time I was there. And somebody said to me, "You come to New York to sleep?" It's just like heaven for me. So, mornings in Jay's Museum, poetry in motion, arcane lamp shadows, cat faces, river boats for bases, cutout face of Michel, pasted to sync with ginger figure, boots shelved, wordy spines to wall, 'cause books, Jay's saying, making lot of noise, early, via bedroom window, close to rear building, guy 10 feet away coughing up stuff, showering, child somewhere speaking Slavic language, fresh voice, mother breaking into song. For visitor, this near promiscuous proximity exotic, whereas irritating back home. Now rain. What better lullaby than early morning rain? Swishing through leaves outside window. Somebody's clock goes off, not stopping. As somebody likely already gone to work, maybe one of those black-clad silhouettes on sidewalk below, rushing pants, tight pants, shoes, long tapered toes towards subway, clock pinging annoyingly, rapidly for hour. Otherwise, day strangely quiet. Good for writing. Also good for writing. Glut of amazing poetry readings, raising spirits to point of evanescence, so that giggling way through $10 Japanese box lunch with S, you're near manic, talking, recounting hilarious exchange with customs officer at border, looking startled in booth, then bursting out laughing at Northern saying, visiting NYC to check out the downtown poetry scene. What can poetry do? It can't not do nothing. It must undulate with the 2:30 p.m. dance music, the sole patrons at Stonewall. Some old Stonewallers, certainly in attendance, at Church Hall, portmanteau reading, celebrating one of them, Tim Dugo, aided down by AIDS at height of epidemic. The audience, mostly men, trimmed, gymmed, groomed, substantial gray hair, gathering in resistance of idea that poetry can be fragile and ephemeral. Before you know, it's out of print, gone and forgotten. Some lesbians, Ian plaid shirt, beautiful young girlfriend, and tiny pooch draped lengthwise on arm. Older men gathering round, eyeing E and alluring young lover. Envious, you thinking. The pooch's little brown mug, as E reading the Gaulle poem, hanging onto every word with intensity of the besotted. I'm in bed in the Plaza Hotel, New York. The guy who picked me up is in the bathroom, and I'm wondering what he'll want me to do, worrying that there's some kind of way of making love between men that I've never heard of. As I go through, I'm quoting poets. Their names are in the margin. I'm not naming them right now, but it's kind of a Rolex. It's really great to be able to see all these poets' names that you see first thing when you open the book and leaf through it. The days mesh, they rain, washing piss smell off concrete. Trees turning leaves forward to drink or away in repudiating wind. AC unit opposite adding soft, persistent wine. Another somewhere churning, creaking like ancient lawnmower, blending with ambient brouhaha so that pours entire body, absorbing faintest environmental stimulus like those petaled faces abundantly fronting, walking west, Greenwich Village dwellings, their little faces turning this way and that, catching rays floating upon breeze, you asking older male writer, you happening on in Greenwich, friend of late William Burroughs, if old beat having, as rumored, response armory at ready in case of threat, knives, revolvers, rifles. Yes. Was he kind? Very, or else very not. Walking back east, leaves blowing pleasantly, your face also turning this way and that, catching last rays, piercing shadows. A restaurant on 9th, run by young people, named after Walt Whitman, celebrated poet for whom America, center of equal daughters, equal sons, all alike endeared, grown, ungrown, young or old. Then a girl, high-laddered stockings, stepping from behind, resto cash, to fetch beer sausage in kitchen, cooking classic Americana, slow-pulled pork, chicken, mouth-watering, served on bread you can't eat, but holding sausage with caramelized onions carefully in napkin, dragging suitcase to laundromat on first, on high shelf by entrance, 2 Buddhist altars, half eclipsed by loud, large screen 10-2 Jersey Shore reality TV shenanigans, while sheets turning and tumbling, fingers crossed, no bed bugs on folding tables, scooting round corner to gluten-free bakery, choosing corn muffin with jalapeno, perfect with sausage, walking home 9th, thoughts more dissimulated in fold of stomach than in labyrinthian folds of any poetics, after Whitman's local brewer, then funky herborist, small Mexican diner, home-cooked meals, proprietors sitting inside, waiting, finally cafe pick-me-ups, beloved bitter coffee, middle-aged guy in Bermudas entering, holding featherweight burger, downing 2 traditional Cokes out of bottle, taking burger with to can, frequented by continual stream from park opposite, once being there with Montreal students, guy exiting restroom, yelling, somewhat at our table, taking crap sans flush, yelling, till all eyes focused on red-faced kid from Chez Nous. Nina Simone around midnight, ushering in sleep, singing at Carnegie Hall, Broadway songs or angry Southern blues, Mississippi, goddamn, other evenings listening to strands of news, rumble of street, trace of neighbor music, thoughts loose and multiply, There's Michelle on screen, smiling, confident, inviting rappers, spoken word artists, poets of various stripes to White House. Furniture music is playing in back of head. North's Mr. Shh, that's Stephen Harper, right-wing prime minister at the time, offering himself as cultural event at official prime minister residence. Bent knee, foot pounding hard on floor, smashing a rock song on keyboard. Imagine sleeping with that. So are USians really more easily blending highbrow and pop cult, for which American genius globally acknowledged? Searching web for avant poets, either invited to Obama White House or somehow otherwise briefly part of wider discourse, you finding language poet on right-leaning Fox TV, Bill O'Reilly's show, being chewed out for teaching anti-American class at Fordham, poet for duration, posting small smile, neatly footworking with faint humor round O'Reilly's charges of anti-cap, American-hating rhetoric, allegedly served up to innocent students, said poet, also seen footworking on Merce Cunningham dance studio floor, located in classy elder residence overlooking Hudson, walking there further west than usual, losing bearings on curvy West 4th, but at last arriving at aforementioned Lang poet doing cross-step barefoot over floor, red boxer shorts, signs saying nutty professor, choreographed by poet's advanced dance partner who, torquing West Side Story into uncodified non-idiomatic shapes and rhythms of the body outside of canonized genres or codified vernacular. That's Sally Silver speaking. The West Side boy dancers, recast in parodic same-sex pas de deux, almost operatic female voice and background, singing lines from Nutty Professor's Reefer Madness poem. Lick, 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 no licking, derelict dictation, derelict dick, derelict dictation, no licking. And heat rising exponential, Gail ever sleepier. Some saying, unlike locals, visitors lacking defense against stress, barking dogs on leashes, garbage disposal vehicles, idling cars, loud people in cab far downtown to meet potential U.S. publisher, asking cabbie best route to follow, he naming streets of Moscow, you and dandy silk scarf, a scarf may be blasé or signify over effort, watching those girls rushing along east side sidewalk, bare necks, hair piled high to side, tight little dresses, flashing toes. The dandy should be seeking to be sublime without interruption. He should eat and sleep in front of a mirror. That's Baudelaire. The publisher has long hair, is beautiful, 2 jobs, so not likely sleeping much in front of mirror. Gail removes scarf. And there was one I wanted to, that I missed here that I want to read because it is, what happened to it? I've lost it. It's a prose section. Okay. So the last bit I'm going to read is from 2012. And it's it feels to me like it's a kind of torqued mirror of the Poetry Project, and some of the people here might see themselves prancing through this, and certainly anybody connected with the Poetry Project in those years will find themselves, almost anybody will find themselves. In this section, which is called Chelsea Rouge, so you say you want a revolution. It's a moment when in Montreal in the year 2012, there was a massive student rebellion. The students started out by wanting the tuition, the university tuition and college tuition to be frozen. And then as time went by, their movement enlarged. It moved into the neighborhoods and with the unions and so on. And they were talking about expanding their movement to abolish neoliberal ideas. But then the smart premier of the time offered to freeze the tuition, and the movement stopped. So in a way they won, and in a way, I don't know. You tell me. So and also this was also the time of just when the Occupy Wall Street was being evacuated, was being people were being expulsed, and so Gail is a boomer who's very nostalgic for her radical youth, and she spends a lot of time being nostalgic on the sidewalk watching these young Quebec students and marveling at how gorgeous they are and how rosy their cheeks are and how they stay up all night smoking and everything and still look marvelous. But she doesn't go in the demonstration. I don't know why exactly. Then she goes to New York and she wants to get involved with Occupy Wall Street. So she goes racing down to the Zuccotti Park, and there's a barrier around it. So again, she fails, and she's basically a failed revolutionary all the way through. But she tries, and this one part is called Defense and Illustration. Stretched 0512 on Chelsea Airbnb bed, waiting for a computer to charge, air fleeing to air-conditioned cafe, it being usual hot, smelly New York summer day, cats, fleas proliferating in heat, making of silky ass, welted the itchy grid, via open window, multivocal choir, hens being raised in court below by two cop-expulsed Occupy poets, the baseline chicken techno, blending car horns and morning break screech down West Ave by Hudson, planes, landing speakers squealing, melancholy sax, trains, construction racket, crazy variety of bird songs, birds, symphonious, compared to North backyards, scratchy sparrows, starlings, now mockingbird, just up from south, along with warming climb, trying some Lady Robin notes, not bad, not great, trying something else, he doesn't care. Message from North, Gail, come home. Here it's Les Carrés Rouges revolution and you in New York, but as in a dream, you just arriving from airport, the Chelsea brownstone swish, anomalous on opening door to dim and cavernous atrium, several feral cats, half flight up, blonde and flowing gown, faint southern accent summoning tattooed dude sacks to be hauling luggage up, silver flight of stairs, black painted flight, up narrower black flight, room, single bed slanting on floor, gaping odorless closet, stuff hanging out, giant chest of drawers, corner, nice little desk, indeed, every room in-house, presenting as X-ray dream of detective novel, once housing famous film star, its elegant drapery drawn to be revealing two habitants of Chelsea House Common, that gorgeous pair of ex-Occupy youth just up from sowing praying mantis eggs in garden for eating up mosquitoes, dyed black heads, bent over little screen at end of long table, where North Carré Rouge student revolution expanding into hoods, the dimming salon light, grazing youth's hair, and mod apparel, inferring faint congruence with mansion's exquisite tiling, Tiffany-style chandeliers, delicate carved woodwork, Italianate or Greek revival windows. Woman on stairs, absent for days, feverish, her mate explaining, having marched entire scorcher of a May 1 demo in latex Miss Piggy regalia, now abruptly reappearing, lovely erect in wingback Queen Anne salon chair, mid-toys, papers, cords, electronics, little table, bags of bagels, cat stuff. Leaning over, she's selecting piece of crinkly paper from box and attaching to curls. Presto, a sunflower. Little child, big glasses, hidden behind book, emitting from time to time small animals outside long windows, trees bending, heavens instantaneously darkening, one of frequent intense storms during canicle in city, child pushing chair to window, feet outside despite violence of elements. Don't fall, mother offering mildly. Like all these amazing tree houses and pirate ships, you are building with your mind and on paper, rooms attached with ladders suspended, spiraling around mats or trunks. Ask anyone, anything, and I will tell you how you say ingenious inventions in rooms, in house, the energy of our new habitations. That's Leanne Brown, if you haven't already figured that out. But Gail, climbing to room, pleading allergy to cats and their fleas, preferring, like any northern, to be alone, pulling sheets black, why black to chin, to be fending off vermin, a little hungry, having buried salmon from fine corner grocer, deep in Fridger's cornucopia of Trader Joe dumpster gleanings, courtesy of ex-occupiers, stepping out nights with shopper carts and gathering unusable grocer discard for common use, thus laying there in top floor bed, you savoring instead downtown, hometown, Le Devoir coverage of Carré Rouge uprising. Le gouvernement will not resolve this student conflict as long as it fails to grasp what it is dealing with. A generation not like other generations, a generation whose goals exceed the education issue and whose protest is not likely to stop anytime soon. Then dream, cut, to choke, L-train platform, French sweater, pearl buttons, bloused in at waist, albeit notwithstanding Frenchy presentation, Gail less Bode type show-off dandy than Poe type asocial, for whom to be alone meaning to be dissimulated in crowd. The harder a woman is to find, the more suspicious she becomes, who now disappearing into St. Mark's, not usual poetry project parish hall reading locale, but actual church sanctuaries, elegant, plain Protestant lines, muted, beige, white, pews packed with congregants from avant jazz poetry milieu, already in thrall to John's torn, hornadine exaltation for all free musical improvisation tilting toward religious in tone. Now, cacophony, referencing in reverse time order, brouhaha outside your Chelsea early morning window, planes honking, people screaming, melancholy train, wind washing, traffic in loud tunnel, crazy high bird, boat horns, fight booze in football field, loud buses, bird high wire, music acknowledging its sources, simultaneously deep in convo with Thurston Moore, Fender amp, crowd increasingly akimbo, eroticized, to paw is to possessed, a gesture of loners. We are all mutants in our own gaze, calling out young poet Erica Kaufman, long black curls, faux leopard top. Let's hang the used condom on a branch of an olive tree. Let's ask one less question at the end of each chapter and read. Then long, tall Dana Ward from Cincinnati, thin arm, pointed finger, raising from lectern like fragile, pale-stemmed winter plant, a skeleton, Speaking of my skeleton, which floats alone and singing. Then Latasha and Nevada Diggs voicing musical composition of multiple tongues dancing together, shouting down an avalanche of languages, notably indigenous hegemonic forces, in poems so fierce, so fraught, Blady and mobile, saying critic, their showiness and flaunt are like the fierceness of the drag balls Diggs salutes in one poem, a visible weapon, a tactic simultaneously offensive and defensive, a war game for the whole body. Dream set, now resto, somewhere on 6th, where Gail, cafardant to R, she hungry, on account of looking repeatedly for own personal peanut butter, bread, fish in Chelsea common fridge, either gone or buried irretrievable in refrigerator depths, are to reply, it's, i.e. the Chelsea house, a good project. You just need to get in step with positivism of era. Put up a sign, I heart you, but don't take my shit. Your resto table, already cleared of shared sparse antipasti, prosciutto di Parma, salami toscano, crotonese, mortadello, focaccia, craving more. Outside window, shorebird profile of well-known author, haunted houses at terrace table, plus your NYC publisher earlier saying, you lucky to be launching obituary novel with cool younger gay poet, who for sure, drawing crowd. Are saying, your problem may be age. You saying, you're making me cry. Tears glistening, a little glycerin in car lights, you crossing avenue to ATM on account of ours preferring cash-only restaurants. That's why no state health care system in this country, you snapping. Then are always generous, kindly offering prose work as present, page opener. Since I have been at the Benjamina Institute, I have already contrived to become a mystery to myself. That's Robin Walser. And one more little section. After all that, so now we're in middle of Hurricane Sandy. Just after Hurricane Sandy, Gail crossing church courtyard, scoping skeletal poet, stepping from darkest graveyard side, enhanced white face, framed in black kerchief tied back, slim black dress down to ankle, one could say death figure, predicating coming wounded city, long black clad body gently rocking, reading rape jokes to mostly female audience, called on the net. Her art, poet to be declaring, creating own trap, wherein to stand and wave and often get caught. To me, she says, that's more illuminating than acting as if I could stand outside of the trap or fashion the frame. You, ever obsessed with how to write that estrangement, necessary to radical upheaval, fascinated. Then seeing young woman beside, open-mouthed in shock, pale as if to faint, other mouths in downward dog grimace, or posting faintly drawn ironic smiles. Perhaps conceptualist in tearing object, sexual assault from interpretive frame and context, achieving a desired chalk effect. Yet one could also ask, is poet not inadvertently reaggressing by isolating object from its social relations? No language is neutral, Dion Brand. And by the way, I'm not sure that that kind of moralistic critic is worth much, but that's what I was thinking at the time. Next, now near publishers, man awaiting bus and streaming, Icer, Lower Town, Northeaster, soaked to the bone, droopy, broken umbrella, bulging, worn-out briefcase, on way to cheap hotel, his lower Manhattan digs destroyed in rising waters, no friends or relatives, looking hopeful at your friendliness, then drawing back into contemplative whole as you choosing seat across aisle, the better to be thinking how to write moment, guy, rain, loneliness, general lack of empathy, in sentencing of multi-level cadence, lending this bus estranging moment some kind of alternate grid for narrative. Sitting there, you contentedly, the artist, well knowing needy guy across aisle, thinking you unkind, or as Quebecois friend declaring in her matter-of-fact Franco way, to write is to betray. That's, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Such truly brilliant music. That was really such a gift. And thank you, Rachel, for that